Greetings and good afternoon. My name is Tamika Strong, and I am the Reference and Research Division Manager at the Auburn Avenue Research Library. And I want to welcome you to our Find It Fridays presentation on poetry. And so, our Find It Friday series is a series of 1 hour presentations done via Zoom that focuses on various resources available through the library as well as through Fulton County Library System. And so our upcoming presentation will cover the ProQuest historical newspapers database that focuses on, that includes the archives of non African American newspapers, including our very own local newspaper, the Atlanta Daily World. And so that will take place um, on the second Friday the third Friday of the month in May. And let me see if I can pull that date up. On May 16th at noon, we will be here, and our illustrious colleague, Ms. Marcella James, will lead that presentation. And in the description for today's presentation, my colleague Frederick Cox was listed as a presenter, but unfortunately he is not here. He is away, and so we're presenting this on his behalf. And so I want to go ahead and get started with discussing some various resources available through the Auburn Avenue Research Library as well as Fulton County in general that will help those who are interested in becoming poets, expanding on their poetry, looking for information about poets in our collections, as well as looking for poems themselves. And so I'm going to go ahead and stop my video so that I can focus more on the actual resources. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And we're going to start at the Auburn Avenue Research Library's website. And the easiest way to get there is to go to Fulton County Library System's main website, which is fullcolibrary.org. And you'll see that up there. And then once you get to fullcolibrary.org, if you select hours and locations, you can then select Auburn Avenue from the list on the right. And once you arrive to Auburn Avenue, you will see our website that includes the slides, the banners of our upcoming programs, as well as some exhibits that we have on display here in the facility that you're more than welcome to come and see during our opening hours. Also, want to take a moment to highlight our limited edition commemorative library card that features artwork by Charlie Palmer, an award-winning artist. And the limited edition card is actually signed by Mr. Palmer. So if you're interested in receiving a very unique piece of history, please make your way down to Auburn Avenue and secure your library card. And so, as it says here, we will be discussing resources for poets that are available through the Auburn, through our library system. And so, one of the great things about our website is that regardless of what page you select from our website, in the header of it will always be the place where you can search our catalog. And so you can also search our website as well as our events. But then in searching our catalog, you can also do it by keyword, title, author, subject, as well as others. So if we try to do a subject search for poets or poetry, we would select subject from the drop down and put in our keyword of poetry. And once we do that, we learn that we have more than 6,600 results throughout the system. But if you were just interested in trying to find books on poetry that have poetry in the subject, and you're just looking for books at a particular location, you can filter your results on the left hand side of the screen. And if you click on available at, it will display all of the locations where these materials are located. And if you select Auburn Avenue, you can see that 1,600, approximately 1,600 of the 6,600 materials are available through Auburn Avenue. So the thing about the Auburn Avenue collection is that we are unique in the sense that we are a non-circulating library. And what that means is that our books do not leave our institution. As it says here in the call number field for this particular book, Sister Outsider, in library use only. So our entire collection is treated as a reference collection where none of them leave the building. But you can also see that in the case of The Undefeated, not only do we have a copy of this particular book, but there are several other copies of this book throughout the system. So though we may have it, but there are other locations that also has it so that you are able to put this particular title on hold and pick it up at your library, or if it's available at your library, you can pull it off the shelf yourself. And so if we do a keyword search for poetry, remember for the subject, we had over 6,600, but for keyword searching, we have more than 7,200 results, and we have a variety of formats as well. So in this very first one, where the title is simply poetry, we have this available through our Hoopla platform, and it's an ebook and it's instantly available. But then if you were interested in only looking at our online offerings, you can, just like with the location filter, you can filter all of the materials and just pull up all of the titles that are available online using this search. So it looks as though we not only have ebooks, but we also have e-videos that are available to be seen on these. It looks like poetry being performed. Ah, and these are older videos from the 1960s. So this would be a very interesting exploration of these researchers, of um, these resources so that you can actually see them acted out. And then there are even some on different cultural poetry. So there's something for everyone, like poetry comics. I have never heard of poetry comics, so this is something new for me. And so this would be a great way to just explore the different the varied presentations of poetry that we offer through the Fulton County Library System, as well as at the Auburn Avenue Research Library. And so, for those who don't know about Auburn Avenue, we are unique in the sense that we are a special library of the Fulton County Library System that has a collection and a focus on the culture and history of African Americans or the African diaspora. So all of the materials that are available here at Auburn Avenue do focus on the African diaspora. And so we will have materials from Africa, from South America, from all over. And we have it reflecting the various walks of life, the different lifestyles, different ages, and it just runs the spectrum. And so if you're ever interested in doing research on a particular poet, like let's say Gwendolyn Brooks, we can search for her by name. And then we can see by filtering our results by location, we can determine what books of poetry we have by this particular author. And so not only did she write poetry, she also wrote some longer pieces, but we do have a large selection of materials by her. We can just do Audre Lorde, who is also a poet. Um, as well. We even have some very famous poetries. Yeah, I was trying to remember the title of it. It is for colored girls. For colored girls, which is the long poem, and that has been developed into a major motion picture. And so, for colored girls who have considered suicide when the rainbow is enough, we do have a copy of that as well as some others. And I'm pretty sure other libraries have copies of this as well. So, if anyone was interested in checking this particular book out, there are some others. Like there's a version of the play that's older from 2002, but then there's a more recent um, major motion picture version of the poem that was done back in 2011. And so there are many different resources and different formats available through the Fulton County Library System that will um, discuss, offer various resources available for poetry, even how to write a poem. So, if we were just curious about how to write a poem, we even have materials on that. So, there's this one that is for children. But even if it is a children's book, sometimes some of the topics, the way in which the children's books are written, can be helpful for adults as well. And so there are some older titles as well. And let's see if any of these are available at Auburn. So it looks like we have one, and it doesn't really look like a how to book, it's more of um, Words and Wisdoms of Charles Johnson. And it really doesn't look like it really addresses anything related to poetry at all. So, one of the things you will have to do if you're unsure about the content of a particular title that appears in the search results is that if you click on the title of the item, just like I did with this particular book, you will be able to pull up its informational page, and then you can read more about the author in some cases, and there's also a description of what the book is about. Okay. So from here, I wanted to highlight some additional resources that are available, not only through Auburn, but just through the Fulton County Library System in general. And so we do have a digital library that contains many online resources. And so we have databases like Creative Bug. And I would think that Creative Bug would be one of those resources that will provide information about how to do various projects. And so it looks like it has a lot of textile information, but I'm pretty sure if we explore this, we can see some information about poetry. So I'm just going to log in on a different screen just to protect my part number. I'm very interested in creative book myself because I am a creator. My mode of creation is typically crochet, but I'm interested in other creative hobbies. So I'm just trying to see if I already have a collection. I have this listed. Okay, why not? So Just bear with me for a moment. I'm just trying to make sure I can access this. And this is the process that many of us will have to, you will have to go through as a library card holder to um, be able to access this resource, as it is only available to library card holders. And as I previously mentioned, this series does highlight several of the resources that we do have available to um, library card holders here in Fulton County. So we definitely want to make sure that you're aware of many of these resources. So while that is still loading, I wanted to turn your attention to some other resources. And so you can actually look through all of them by clicking on all resources, and it'll take you through A through Z resource list. But one particular resource I did want to make you aware of is Galileo. And Galileo offers a great deal of records on a variety of different things. And included within the Galileo package is this resource called Novel List. And Novel List is a way for you to explore, um, another way for you to explore materials based on a topic or even a level, i.e., a different group. Like maybe you're looking for poetry for students who are ages 9 through 12, and you would be able to have that ability to refine your results. So if you're looking for poetry, and I use poetry as our key as a keyword for our keyword search, and if I wanted to just focus on poetry for ages 9 through 12, I can refine my results to reflect that. And the list that appears now are materials that are suitable for our students who are 9 through 12. And so here's one where we spoke about poetry comics. If we were to find a different one like poetry prompts, this will be a great tool to encourage young people to start writing poetry. And so this is something that would be of interest to me as an aunt who has great nieces and nephews who are not really at this age range yet. Well, no, I do have some who are at this age range. And so if I really wanted to encourage them to write poetry, this would be a book that I would consider. And then I can go down here to check availability. And once I click on that, it actually connects to our catalog, and it lets me know that that particular book we do not have, unfortunately. But there may be others that we can come across, like this one, Fly with Poetry, and ABC of Poetry. And we can see that we now have two print copies of this particular book. And we can click the Go to Catalog, and it will display our the entry in our library's catalog, and then we can click on location, and it looks as though the OC branch is the only location in the system that has multiple copies of this book. But thankfully, we do have a hold system where if there is a book available at a different location, you can place a hold for that book and they will send it to your nearest location. So there was one on African American poetry. This is interesting. So we can see if there is a copy of this book in our collection, which it is. We have 8 copies. And so by clicking on that link, we now can check to see what locations have a copy of this book available. And it does look like Auburn Avenue is one of those locations. And so looking back at Creative Book, we can now do a search on the classes to see if they have a class on poetry. And so while that's still loading, wanted to do a quick search in our Galileo. So we're just going to go back here, and remember, with our website at the top, there's always a header where we can quickly go to and navigate to our digital library. And then we can click on all online resources, and then we can click on G for Galileo. And we're just going to do a quick search for Galileo. So since I want the full, because I want to see everything they have available, so it's like poetry, or we can do something like how to write a poem. And this is going to search across the multitude of databases that includes journals, scholarly articles, encyclopedia entries, ebooks, Learning Express, media, and it's going to display all of those resources on the screen for you to select. And so if there's one that catches your attention, you can definitely click on that. So, like this one, How to Write Poems That Speak to the Hearts of Children. Maybe that's a group that you would like to work on poetry for. Or maybe you just want to learn how to write a poem in general. And so there is a magazine entry from the Horn Book Guide from 2023 that does deal with that topic. There's also an entry from the Digital Library of Georgia, which is another very valuable resource that's available to us, that that has an oral history, it looks like, from the former poet laureate of Georgia, who is speaking on the topic of how can I dare to write. So maybe that would be something that would be encouraging to someone who might be questioning whether or not they should write poetry. Anthony Groom's Write Your Stories. Um, he is relating some advice he received from a writer, Raymond Andrews, on the expectations of others. So maybe this is something else that would be useful for um, you as well. And so there's a variety of information here on various topics, how to, and then also poetry. And then, of course, you can search for, say, for instance, if you wanted to do a different poet, like Langston Hughes. And just see what resources are available about Langston Hughes. So it looks like there's quite a bit. There is profiles on ebooks on him as a poet, biographies. There is information about some of his works. There is primary sources, strong voices of Black women and men in selected poetry of Langston Hughes. So this is a thesis that actually discusses some of his poetry and the voices of those characters that um, the voices that came through his poetry as he was writing. And so this is a great resource not only for learning how to write a poem, but also doing research on different poets. And I'm pretty sure different poet styles like the haiku. Maybe I spelled this wrong. So writing a haiku, how to and so there's actually a book called How to Write Everything and How to Write a Thesis. So there are a ton of resources here on a Galileo platform that can actually help you with not only your poetry, but other writing as well. And so there was Library of Congress that actually posted something about poetry recently. And so the Library of Congress, if you don't know, is the National Library, and it has huge collection on a ton of different topics, some of which you can see that are trending here, various topics. But we can also see what type of material does the largest library in the United States have on poetry. And so it looks like they actually have an archive of recorded poetry and literature. And so, say for instance, if you wanted to look for a certain genre of or poetry for a particular group, there's a blog post about the godmother of African American poetry, and they're suggesting that her name is Naomi Cornelia Long Madgett, particularly for her creative output and influence on publishing African American poetry. And so there's other resources, including audio recordings, blogs, as we previously mentioned, but also there's some more books that they have. And it also looks like they actually had a symposium on poetry and the American people. So this may be something of great interest to you regarding just how poetry has, I was just about to say this, poetry has shaped America. And so this is another great resource for you to consider utilizing while considering poetry. And so it looks like the search results for Creative Book have displayed, and it really focuses more so on, I'll bring this over so you can actually see it. It's really focusing on writing in general, so not particularly focused on poetry, but there is some prompts at the top where you can use words to inform images. So 31 prompts using writing as an inspiration for art. And so it looks like this is more of textile creative materials as opposed to literary creations. So Creative Book may not be the best resource, but this is definitely something to consider if you're really interested in doing any of these different crafts. So it also has material about kids and teens, jewelry as well. So moving right along. So one of the things that myself and my colleague wanted to do was that we wanted to make this interactive. So I am a big proponent of practical learning. And so one of the things I learned to do very early on when I was a student was that we would create poems from the letters in our names. And so, one of the things that myself and my colleague talked about was us having a session regarding that. So, say for instance, if your name is Tina, each line would be, you would write your name downward instead of left to right. You would do from up to down. And then you would say T is for talented, I is for innovative, N is for nice, A is for, huh, A is for accessible, meaning that she is accessible to her friends. And so this is a way that you can start writing a small poem with regards to using the letters in your name. And so it kind of describes you as talented Tina, innovation is a driving point to her achieving her goals. She is accessible to her friends who all considers her who all thinks of her as a nice person. So the thing about poetry for me, as someone who has written poetry previously, is that it is a way for you to express yourself in a non-conforming way. Now, there are various methods, various types of poetry that you can explore. However, it's really up to you. It's really up to whatever um, you desire to discuss, whatever you want to share. And so, one of the things that we could do is we could look in Galileo and type in types of poetry and see what type of information is shared. And so, there is an encyclopedia entry about poetry that will be a good starting point for anyone who is curious about the various types of poetry that one could write. And so we can actually access it online, the full text article. And so it talks about the nature of poetry. It also talks about the various forms of poetry. Let's see if they give us, there it is, the different types. So there is poetry as pure art form, most so called didactic poetry. But then there's short poems, there are long poems, there are various poetic traditions that have arisen over the course of history. And they also go into, of course, the origin of poetry. And so there is poetry that rhymes, there's poetry that doesn't rhyme, there's poetry that is like a few letters, few words, but then there's also poetry that goes for several pages. And so it's just one of those art forms that runs the gamut. So this was a way for us to share with you some resources that are available through the Auburn Avenue Research Library, as well as by extension, the Fulton County Library System that focuses on poetry. So this has been Tamika Strong, the manager of the Reference and Research Division. And hopefully you will join us at our upcoming presentation that will cover ProQuest historic Black newspapers, and it will show you how to explore that resource so that you can utilize it for your research purposes. Thank you and have a great day.